Hello, my name is Rayford Reddell. My love affair with roses has been going on for 25 years. The first 15 of those years, I was happily growing roses as a hobby in my San Francisco backyard. Then I ran out of space. Bedazzled by the vision of fields of roses, I then purchased a beautiful 9-acre plot of land in Petaluma, Northern California, with the idea of growing roses commercially for cut flowers. I called it Garden Valley Ranch. Many of the roses here are Jackson & Perkins varieties, and there are good reasons for that. For one, Jackson & Perkins demand exceptional quality and performance in their roses. And I sleep better at night too, knowing that their rootstock is virus-free. We now have fields with over 8,000 rose bushes. Just about everywhere you look, there are roses. We even have a romantic area surrounded by roses for open-air weddings. When I'm not caring for my roses, I'm working on my regular newspaper column about roses, writing books on roses, and lecturing, so you can understand why roses are my passion and continue to consume my life. Roses have given me an enormous amount of pleasure and happiness, and they continue to do so. That's why I want to pass along my thoughts and tips on roses, so that you too can experience the same fun and rewards that I have. Let's start with some rose fundamentals. Of all the gardeners I wish I'd met, I'd certainly like to have known the man who said he'd rather plant a 2-bit rose in a 4-bit hole than vice versa. Nothing you ever do for a rose is as important as the care you give in creating its home. Okay, let's start with the 4-bit hole. These days, actually, it would cost more like $4. The ideal hole is about 18 inches or so deep and up to 2 feet wide. Providing your roses with the right type of soil in which to grow is critical. You need to get your soil to look something like this, a good garden loam. Mix this loam with equal portions of aged manure and any organic material like compost or peat moss. Before you start to plant your rose, there's one important step to take. You need to make sure that the hole drains properly. Fill it with water, and if it doesn't drain within an hour, dig deeper and improve the drainage. Okay, now you're ready to plant. Start by building a cone of soil on the bottom of the hole. Before planting bare root roses, they should be soaked in water, 24 hours if you can, or at least overnight. To help prevent disease, it's a good idea to add a little household bleach too. A 1/4 cup per 5-gallon container will do fine. Also, nip off any broken or damaged roots with sharp shears. This bulbous swelling here is called the bud union. It's your guide to how high to plant your rose bush. If your climate is temperate, place your bud union approximately 2 inches above soil level. If the temperature in your region drops well below freezing, place the bud union approximately 2 inches below soil level. Now the bush is in place, you can see the reason for the cone. With the roots resting firmly on top, fill the hole using your hands, not your feet, to pat the soil in place. Now you can give your rose bush a thorough watering. This last step is a must. Unless you mound newly planted roses, they can get parched by the winds. Mound them to half their height and water again. With roses, the key to watering isn't watering frequently, but watering a lot when you do water. In so doing, water goes deep into the ground and encourages strong root formation. If you water only the surface, you'll encourage feeder roots. And now to the fun part, the reason we all grow roses in the first place. But look at the roses themselves. I'm lucky, I get to smell them too. Hybrid teas are roses that were first hybridized in the latter part of the 19th century as a cross between hybrid perpetual roses and tea roses, hence the name. The principal characteristics of hybrid tea roses are their upright growth, long stems, single bloom per stem, and their ability to repeat flower during the growing season. Let's take a look at some hybrid tea roses. Here are some winners that I would personally recommend for all-round performance. Double Delight remains one of the world's favorite hybrid teas. Small wonder, since its unique color combination is never the same on any two blossoms. You'd be hard-pressed to find a white rose with pink edges that has stems as long as sheer bliss. Not only do they make superb cut flowers, blossoms are sharply fragrant. Medallion is a superb rose. Blossoms are exceptionally large and sit atop long cutting stems. For these blooms to reach full maturity, cut these when the sepals are well down and petals begin to unfurl. Although French perfume is classified as a yellow blend, it's just as pink, and every blossom combines the two colors in a different pattern. Fragrance is consistently strong. Hybrid teas will fit into almost any garden design. They look good grouped together in threes or fours to make a bold statement, or as a single bush in the middle of a border or bed. They're just natural-born mixers. The category Floribunda roses was created more than 65 years ago by none other than Jackson & Perkins, and year in and year out they've continued to enhance and develop the variety. I like to call these roses show-offs because they have the ability to produce many blooms per stem and repeat flower throughout the season. Floribundas generally tend to be shorter in height and have a more compact habit than hybrid teas. And because they frequently have so many blooms on each stem, the blossoms are usually smaller than those of hybrid teas. Here are some outstanding Floribunda roses, some that I've been growing for a long while. The blossoms of French lace have flawless form. They occur in sprays of from 3 to a dozen blooms each. Foliage is small and a handsome shade of dark green. The richly colored petals of Intrigue are ruffled. Intrigue may be modest in height, but is prolific in blossom. Love Potion has a terrific future for itself. Ruffle blossoms are sinfully perfumed and stamens are golden yellow. Best of all, bushes are exceptionally well behaved. As its immense popularity is showing, Purple Tiger is one of the most unusual roses ever introduced. Blossoms that are usually formed in sprays are madly striped and blossoming is prolific. Climbing roses are those that can be trained to climb up walls, trellises, arbors, or pillars. They can grow in length and spread anywhere from 12 to 50 feet. So the first thing you'll probably want to check on is to make certain that the climber you're buying will work in the place you plan to plant it. Many climbers like Blaze, seen here, will repeat bloom, but there are those that do not. You'll have to train your climbing roses by initially tying the canes to an upright, a post or a wire perhaps, and then, as the canes get taller, attaching them horizontally to your trellis, wall, or arbor. In doing so, you'll encourage your climbing roses to produce more laterals, as shown here, giving you more blooms. I love climbing roses. They offer so much variety, they give a sense of height to a garden, they look wonderful climbing up trees, and best of all, require a minimum of pruning and care. Cecile Brunner is a classic climbing polyantha rose and a mighty producer of lightly scented, perfectly formed blossoms. Give this one plenty of room. It's a house eater. America deserves the All-America Award it received. Its blossoms of 40 meticulously arranged petals are deeply perfumed, and the distinct coral color is a natural-born winner. Zéphirine Drouin is a hot pink beauty. Typical of its bourbon ancestry, fragrance is intense. New to rosedom, Dreamweaver is a welcome addition to climbers, especially if gardeners are interested in healthy, floriferous plants. When I started growing roses, nothing frightened me as much as the thought of pruning them. Now I want to make it easy for you with my simple 4-step pruning lesson. First, make sure that you have a pair of clean, heavy-duty, sharp pruning shears, a pruning saw, and loppers. Okay, 1. If Mother Nature hasn't done it already, strip all the leaves from the bush. 2. Remove all the twiggy top growth. This allows you to better see the structure of the bush, particularly the center, where you will have to make the important cuts. 3. Take out dead wood and any wood that crosses the center of the bush. These interfere with air circulation. If canes are hard to get to with shears or lopper, use a pruning saw. 4. Look for dormant budding eyes facing outward from the center of the bush. Make all cuts 1/4 inch above them. This is the point from which all new growth will appear. These final pruning cuts are the ones that will determine the height and shape of your bush. This is what a well-pruned rose bush should look like. It may seem a little stark right now, but look what happens in a few months. Hard to believe, isn't it? Roses need feeding regularly, but just as important as the fertilizer you use is how you apply it. The correct procedure calls for spreading fertilizer around the drip line of the bush. The drip line is that imaginary circle that would be formed if the bush were soaking wet and dripping water at its perimeter. Be sure to follow the product label directions carefully. After applying fertilizer, you must water it in thoroughly so that it reaches down to the roots where it's needed. Not many gardeners consider creating a living hedge of roses. But when you think about it, isn't it a wonderful idea to have a fence or boundary that blooms from spring through fall? The rose hedge I frequently put to use is Jackson & Perkins Simplicity. Spaced 18 inches to 24 inches apart, the bushes quickly form a dense screen, lending a touch of grace and a lot of color to your landscape. Simplicity is the best-selling rose of all time. Jackson & Perkins has now sold over 20 million. Another rose that works well as a hedge is in the rugosa family of roses. Identified by their crinkly petals and very thorny canes, these hardy roses, which are not troubled by salty winds, are an excellent choice for coastal or difficult-to-grow locations. In the never-ending search for rose perfection, old garden roses have been crossed with modern hybrids and floribundas. The result is a new strain of roses that possess the best qualities of both. I think Graham Thomas is the best of the yellow English roses. Blossoms are large, richly fragrant, and bushes are agreeably disease-resistant. Heritage is the most famous and popular of all English roses, doubtlessly because of its appealing shell pink color and the way each blossom is so lovingly formed. Fair Bianca is a favored English rose for those gardeners who like to enjoy roses indoors. Its cream to white blossoms are cunningly formed and rich in honey-like perfume. I believe that Evelyn is the most deliciously perfumed of all English roses. The color of the intricate blossoms never seems to be the same, sometimes yellow, other times apricot, but always with hints of pink. My experience suggests that there should be a place in everyone's garden for at least 1 or 2 of these new roses. They come in all colors, shapes, and sizes, and nearly all of them will bloom happily, on and off for at least 6 months of the year. I'd like to sing the praises of mulch for a minute. Mulch is nothing more than organic material layered over the ground where plants grow. Roses absolutely love it. Mulch makes 3 important contributions. First of all, it retains moisture so that the roots remain cool. Secondly, it controls weeds. That's welcome news to any gardener. And third, it releases its nutrients every time it is irrigated over the course of the growing season. Most nurseries carry a wide selection of mulch. Many of them have redwood or other fir bark shavings. They all carry manure, and I'm a great believer in making a manure at least a part of the mulch. Also, it is much better to use fowl manures than it is either steer or cow manure. Just make certain that the manure has been aged. If manure is fresh, it will burn the young feeder roots. Without question, the rose is the most versatile shrub that exists. In fact, the only limitation to the role roses can play in your garden is your own imagination. Whether you have a tiny plot or a large estate, there are roses that will blend perfectly into the design. Nowadays, most gardeners prefer to make roses an integral part of their overall garden plan, rather than planting them alone in regimental rows. Roses are best used for drama, to highlight areas, to create a mood, to complement or contrast with other flowers and plants, or to make a single color statement. And let's not forget yet another versatile side of roses, their ability to be easily grown in containers, like this lovely Floribunda brass band. One of the great advantages of pots, of course, is that they can be moved around to suit your whim, or the sunshine. A very attractive and practical solution for small gardens and patio areas. Remember, though, that they'll need watering and feeding more frequently. One of the real joys of growing roses is to be able to use them in floral arrangements. Whether it's a single stem or a lavish bouquet, there's nothing that lifts the spirits quite like a beautiful arrangement of rose blossoms. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Here's a tip. After you have cut your roses and brought them into the house, cut the stems a second time under water. This will make your roses last much longer in the vase. Look how quickly my friend Jane creates this lovely bouquet. I'm very lucky to live with such beauty, surrounded by my roses. But you can have the same joys no matter what size your garden. They're not much work, and roses bring so much pleasure. So go find those bare sunny spots and use your imagination, the way I do, with Jackson & Perkins roses. Thanks for watching.